From the Weston A. Price Foundation, welcome to the Wise Traditions podcast for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. We are your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health. And now here is our host and producer, Hilda Labrada Gore.
Hey, Hilda here. There's no shame in taking an antibiotic. They've been efficacious and even life-saving interventions for many. But there are many natural alternatives for healing that spare you the unintended consequences of antibiotic use. This is episode 504, and our guest today is Erin O'Donnell. Erin is the author of Fully Alive. She is also a wife, mother, and former nurse who is committed to equipping moms with a new and natural toolkit for addressing common concerns like thrush, ear infections, sore throats, congestion, sleep issues, and even postpartum infections. Today, Erin gets specific about what herbs, vitamins, supplements, foods, and lifestyle changes can assist the body's recovery without the need for antibiotics. Erin's advice points us to natural antibiotics in a way. By the way, this is the fourth podcast in our Motherhood series this fall. Before we get into the conversation, I want to invite you to a group that is designed to support you on your journey with your children's health. It's called Nourishing Our Children. It's a project of the Weston A. Price Foundation launched in 2005 with a focus on timeless principles for supporting learning, behavior, and health through optimal nutrition. Nourishing Our Children has an active closed group on Facebook that offers support on how to nourish and not merely feed your children. It's called Nourished Children 2.0. If you join, you'll also get complimentary access to the Nourish 2.0 group that is focused on adults for one donation of only $5 for the calendar year. The moderators ensure that no question goes unanswered. So go to nourishingourchildren.org/groups. Again, that is nourishingourchildren.org/groups to learn how to join. And here is a testimonial. Rebecca says this: I joined the Nourishing Our Children group a few years ago after being introduced to the Weston Price dietary principles by my sister, also in the group, and I desired to incorporate them in my own family nest. As with many changes that involve learning, I have found the knowledge and support of the group essential. I appreciate the ideas, recipes, reminders, community dialogue, and challenges to keep developing nourishing traditions as a homeschooling family of 7. The culture continuously moves us in the opposite direction. I so value this group as a partner in our family's journey. That's Rebecca Woolley. Rebecca, thank you for that review. And again, you can find out more about this group by going to nourishingourchildren.org/groups. This is Hilda Labrada Gore, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Welcome to Wise Traditions, Erin.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Hilda.
I love the timing of this episode because as we head into the colder months, this is when people get concerned. And even on the news and the ads, they say it's cold and flu season. And in the parents' mind is, oh no, we're going to have to start putting our kids on antibiotics because of ear infections. But you're going to try to talk to us about how not to need antibiotics, right?
Yes, it's doable. It's really doable.
So let's take it bit by bit. Let's actually pretend that one of our kids has an ear infection. Let's just start with that one. What could we do that's natural that would help us avoid having to get antibiotics prescribed and taken by our child?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's one of the most common reasons they give antibiotics. And I remember learning in nursing school, literally, that the antibiotics don't improve the outcome. They just make the parents leave the pediatrician alone. In nursing school, they admitted to that. I was like, what? But there's so many easy things you can do, both to treat the infection itself and just to reduce the pain. And they're mostly just going hand in hand. So the first thing, just remember the basic principles. So give some vitamin C, no sugar, outside time is really helpful. And then to actually treat kind of topically, if you just get any carrier oil you like, I like the coconut oil because it has its own magical properties, and then a couple drops of lavender oil, and then rub not in the ear, but just all around the area, should take the pain away almost immediately, as well as fight the infection. Some other easy options are you can cut a clove of garlic in half, and obviously you don't want to stick it in the ear canal, but just rest it right in there, almost like my earbud. Mm-hmm. And if you want, you can use a little piece of tape to go over there. The pain will go away almost immediately, and the garlic essence will just be pulled by your bloodstream and your lymph like into where the infection is, and it will very quickly fight the infection. One thing with ear infections is if it's a chronic issue, if it's the kid who always has an ear infection, you definitely want to look at diet things. So it could just be that maybe even good quality dairy, but especially bad quality dairy or gluten or something else is causing so much inflammation that his ears just can't drain. But all of those things should work for both swimmer's ear and like an ear infection that you'd get secondary to a cold or something.
Erin, how did you figure this out? Just on your own, using it on your kids, or did you find resources that were helpful for you?
When I was, like in college and post-college, I was just a hot mess. And I was on the cycle of antibiotics. So I slowly started to get out of the Western medicine is medicine mindset, and became very quickly willing to just try anything and learn from anywhere and listen to anybody. So a lot of it is things I just collected from other moms or just other people who have their brains turned on. And I also love Rosalie de la Foret's books, which we can post a link at the bottom.
Yeah.
My favorite one is Alchemy of Herbs. That is easily my favorite herbal book. And she has mostly herbs that you just probably have in your kitchen anyways, which makes it so easy to just whip up the thing you need when you need it. And I also love Rachel Weaver's Be Your Own Pediatrician.
Fantastic. Okay. So for now, we've got you, and you can be a conduit for some of the information that you've learned both from your research in these books and your own experience with your family. Let's talk about chest congestion. If your kid has a cough or seems to be struggling breathing, what are some treatments or remedies that we might have available, as you were saying, herbs in our own herbal garden or close by?
Yes. So for chest congestion, you want to think about the fact that whatever they're breathing in can hurt them or help them. So when we have sick people, like windows are open, people are outside if they can be, and I would encourage breathing deeply. Obviously, if somebody is passed out on the couch, I'm not going to make them go run laps. But the more they can breathe deeply and move, the more that'll help move out the congestion. And then this is when a diffuser is awesome. And there's all kinds of brands with kid-safe essential oils. I love Eden's Garden in particular, but they have kid-safe oils and they're usually labeled sinus and cold or respiratory blend or things like that. I would definitely diffuse those essential oils. And if you put the diffuser down low, and then you can be interested in going and breathing it deeply. You can get the child to go breathe it in. You can also dilute essential oils really well and then just rub them on the child's chest and back. That will seep in to work where it needs to. Onion is a great remedy. It's much more palatable for adults than for kids, especially raw. But for a child, even if you just can cut the onion and have the child be in the room, you know how much your eyes and your nose will run when you're cutting an onion.
Yes.
It will cause the same thing in his chest if you could just have him in the room. And then it'll get things loose and moving, and then he can hopefully cough them out. If there's a sinus infection that's like dripping back and causing problems, those snot suckers, I love the nose Frito one, are really good for the kids who are too little to blow their own noses. Because unless you're taking out the trash, the problem is never going to be resolved. And also magnesium baths. They help everything, but especially, I think, all the respiratory issues. And a lot of times I'll brew herbal tea, and you could pick, honestly, whatever herbal tea you have in your closet and your child likes. I'll brew it super strong, and then I'll just pour it in the bath so that I'm not trying to coax my child to drink however much tea I want him to. He can just breathe in and absorb all the goodness through his skin.
Yeah, and you're talking about rubbing oils on the back and so forth, and I'm thinking, how tender and how intimate and close and comforting that must feel for the child. In other words, the remedy is important, but it's also this proximity. If we're giving a kid a pill or a liquid to swallow quickly, there's not that much interaction. But here you're taking the time to be near them, to offer these remedies. I can't help but think that context of love is helpful for the healing.
I think so too. And I see we have a beautiful community of moms who are just pretty holistic. And I see these very compassionate children. And I wonder if a lot of that's exactly like you say, because they receive this. They're so used to being slowed down for and receiving love when they need it, then they're very quick to do it for someone else. The other fascinating thing I just learned, and I can't remember where, but there was some study about endorphins boosting your immune system. And we all know that a hug is like the best way to get endorphins quick, right? So when your toddler, who's much too big to carry around, is sick and he wants you to carry him around all day, he's just asking you for what he needs. He's like, I need that love to help me heal. It's just, the design is so beautiful.
Absolutely. So since we're talking about the chest congestion and the ear aches or ear infections, let's move up a little bit to the sore throat.
Yeah. So the sore throat, a lot of the same things that are true for chest are going to be true for the throat. The teas are going to be great. Also, honey, it has so many antibacterial properties. The best honey you can afford is totally worth it. Most honey is apparently adulterated with high fructose corn syrup. So go ahead and shell it out for that local farmer. Almost any herb or herbal tea that you like is sure to be helpful. They all have antibacterial properties and soothing properties, but for the throat, especially sage is good. You can make like a sage lemon honey tea is really nice. There's also a thyme oxymel recipe, which we can put on the little handout here. That's super easy to make. You could take that, unless you're pregnant, you could take it maybe a teaspoon or so in water every hour, and it will soothe the throat so beautifully. And another thing with the throat in particular, if you are treating it like every hour with a cup of tea, a little oxymel, maybe some fire cider, that will be so much more effective than taking a bunch of something right before you leave for work and then taking a bunch of something when you come home. By the time you come home, you're going to be out. But if you can pace yourself, maybe get a couple of thermoses and bring them to work with you or whatever it is, that will be so much more effective.
Okay, so thyme oxymel. Let's go over that recipe real quick, because I know thyme is a common herb that we use when we're cooking and making broth, but oxymel is unfamiliar to me. Can you spell it and then tell us about it?
Yeah, so oxymel is Oxymel, and the oxy part just means like acid. And the mel is the Latin word for vinegar. Is the Latin word for honey. So an oxymel is just vinegar and honey, and then you would infuse an herb into it too. So the thyme oxymel it's my favorite remedy because it's so easy to make and then it's so easy to take. So you I put a recipe here, but there's no rules. You can do it how you like. You want to fill a mason jar about a quarter of the way with some dried thyme, or you could go 3/4 of the way with fresh thyme. And then add about equal parts honey and vinegar and let it sit in your pantry. Rosalie de la Forêt, which is where I first learned the recipe, says to leave it for 2 weeks. The reality is I forget about it until we get sick. So it might stay there for a few months, but all 3 of the ingredients are preservatives, so it's fine. So then when you're getting ready, you can just use it, just give it a good shake, strain it through a strainer and like a funnel into some other container. I keep it in the fridge because it tastes better, but you don't really have to. And then you can just take it. You can take it straight or diluted, like every hour for a sore throat, and it will fight infections anywhere in your body. I've seen it clear up infections I didn't know I had when I was taking it for a sore throat. And I was amazed. I was like, oh, whoa, I didn't even know that was a problem. And it's gone. But it's powerful stuff. It's amazing.
And I've heard good things too about elderberry syrup. And apparently that's not too complicated to make either, right?
It isn't. It's expensive to buy. And I get it because it's like you have to babysit the stuff on the stove, but it's so easy. So I get from my elderberries from Star West Botanicals because it's just good products, good prices, prompt shipping. So I'll just post the recipe too. It's just a 1/2 cup of dried elderberry and 3 cups of water. And you're going to want to boil those, bring it to a boil it for about 20 minutes, and then just turn it off until it's comfortable to work with. You don't want to burn yourself. And then you're going to want to strain it. And in some way, you want to mash out all the last bits of goodness. You don't want to eat the elderberries themselves. There's something toxic in the seeds. So you don't want to just deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add some honey. And you can use as much or as little honey if you like. If you use equal parts honey and the liquid that you got from the elderberries, then it should last for about a year in your fridge. And this one, again, is going to be most helpful if you take it every hour. So if you take it as soon as you feel that little tingle coming on, or when everybody else in the house is sick, take just a little shot like every hour. And that will help you so much more than like a few ounces in the morning and in the evening.
And even if you don't have a tickle in your throat, like you were saying, this isn't going to hurt you, right?
That's what I love about these like natural antibiotics is they're just good for you. Like they'll fight cancer. They're full of nutrients. A lot of them are really tasty. So like we'll mix this one with sparkling water and a little lime juice, and it's a total treat.
All right. Since we're talking about sore throat, let's talk about teeth, if you have teeth pain or your child does, what do you recommend in that case?
Yeah. So teeth are so close to us in Weston A. Price, right? So clove is like my go-to. I don't like to use clove oil. It is so strong. And there's a lot of warnings about using it for like little people or if you're pregnant. So I prefer just to use whole cloves, although I don't think there's anything wrong necessarily with clove oil. But you can just steep a few whole cloves or even the clove powder from your kitchen cabinet in some hot water for say 5 or 10 minutes. And then you would not want to sweeten this with honey because that's going to feed whatever infection is in there. And you can just swish it around. And clove is amazing because it will kill the pain as well as killing the infection. And with the teeth, the same as with the throat, treating it frequently is going to be way more helpful. So if you do it like every time you eat, maybe treat right after, or every time it starts hurting, treat it right away. The good old salt water swish is also really effective. And then I've just been reading, and we have not, thank you, Weston A. Price and all the good dietary guidelines, we have not really had to deal with teeth infections. But I was just been reading a lot about black walnut for tooth healing. So it's again, something you don't want to use when you're pregnant or breastfeeding and not for a long time, but people will use the tincture or a tea and swish with it. And it apparently will kill the infection as well as causing your body to remineralize. Another thing is there's all those remineralizing toothpastes on the market, and I think they're great. If they have glycerin in them, the glycerin will coat your teeth and your teeth can't absorb the minerals, nor can they absorb the minerals from your own saliva. So be a savvy buyer and don't buy it if it has the glycerin in it.
Though I will say I have talked to some of the companies who have small amounts of glycerin and they suggest that it's still effective. So I guess people need to weigh it all out for themselves.
Yeah. Another thing, and I think this is true with any of these infections, there's not some magic one size fits all answer. Like people have all over the world have healed for centuries. So maybe just try the things that sound doable to you, right?
Yeah.
And then see if they work. And then just good diet. So that if you're having your cod liver oil, raw dairy, if you can do that, broth. There's a lot of good herbal teas that are high mineral. Gerolsteiner water is really high mineral. It's like a bubbly water you can buy at the store in glass bottles.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, and I was chiming in about the toothpaste because one of my sisters had a very small cavity and the dentist is, okay, we can drill and fill, or we can put something on it to help it heal. And she's okay. And then she looked and the ingredient in what they put on it to help it heal was hydroxyapatite, which is in several toothpastes now that are on the market in the natural food circles where we're trying to avoid fluoride and some of the other ingredients. And it really worked for her, not only that little bit of healing gel that they put on it, but she started using toothpaste that had that. And I can't remember if the particular brand she was using had glycerin or not, but I suspect that sometimes you've just got to weigh the risks and the benefits. And of course, I know you don't mean any way, shape, or form either to say, don't take your children to a medical professional if the situation is alarming in any way.
Yes. And that's true for all of these things. There's not some kind of award at the end of life for never having taken an antibiotic. If you are that sick, or if you're looking at your child and you're like, wow, like this is not normal, you are not well, please just go in. And if you take the antibiotics and then you don't die and you can turn around and have your sauerkraut and your broth and your better lifestyle, the antibiotics could just be a stopgap to allow you to go live the life that you wanted to. So yes, please don't delay, especially with an infant, and especially a small infant or an elderly person. Follow your intuition.
Mm-hmm. So when I was looking over the remedies and the ways to avoid antibiotics, I was happy to see one of the concerns on your list that you said you could address naturally was thrush, because I remember when my kids were little, particularly with my oldest daughter, when she was under a year old, she would get thrush a lot on her tongue, and I had no idea what was causing it. Now, keep in mind at the time, I was not eating a Weston A. Price kind of diet either, so I'm sure that wasn't helping. What causes thrush? Do you know, and what can we do about it naturally?
So first of all, I'm so sorry because we've done so much thrush in my house and it is so hard. I think a lot of times it can be just underlying issues. So like microbiome issues, which we'd addressed, but apparently we have heavy metals. So I think that is probably playing into it. Also, a child who's tongue-tied is going to be much more likely to get thrush than another child. But regardless of kind of the cause, the treatments are pretty similar. So mom, if it's a breastfed baby, mom needs to be doing all of these things. And then if the baby's old enough, you can also do them for baby. But coconut is first line of defense. Coconut oil is great. So the oil is where the anti-yeast component of the coconut is. So anything high coconut oil. So the coconut oil, the coconut milk are going to be really helpful. The coconut flour or water, not so much. Not that they're bad products. And there's actually a supplement I love called lauricidin. And it's just the extract, the anti-yeast extract. And we could put a link to that if you wanted to. So coconut is really good. And as long as the baby's over about 6 weeks and you see it's not causing trouble, you could put a little bit of coconut on your finger and rub it inside his mouth. And then in addition to eating it, you could actually put it straight on your breast too. Just gently rub some on. And then you'd want to rub off what was visible before nursing for a tiny baby, but whatever's residual shouldn't cause a problem. And then sun is so magic. It's not necessarily easy to make it happen, but if you can get sun on your breasts and even sun anywhere, even if you can't get it right in baby's mouth, but close to, that will help. And a lot of times they get thrush on their bottoms when they have it in their mouths. And that's, if it's warm weather, that's easy enough to get the naked baby out in the sun. Just 10 minutes even will make a huge difference. And then probiotics. So mom needs to eat probiotics. And then there's some good quality infant probiotics you could rub inside their mouth. Or if they're over maybe 2 or 3 months, you could do a little bit of sauerkraut juice, some other natural ferment. But again, just be careful and be smart as you watch your infant and start really slow, because die off in a tiny baby can be really painful.
What do you mean by die off?
So die off would be like if the baby has yeast overgrowth in his mouth, as with Thrush, he probably has it in his whole gut as well. And so when you're giving the probiotic, whether it's a powder or it's sauerkraut or something, or even just the coconut, actually, it will cause the pathogenic yeast to come under control. And then it will probably cause a lot of gas and maybe diarrhea, which in a tiny little gut is so uncomfortable. So you just want to go slow, like less is more. I don't recommend grapefruit seed extract for Thrush. I've done a bunch of reading about grapefruit seed extract, which is one of the natural remedies you hear about. And if it works for you, do it. But there's a preservative in it that is, according to many people, the reason why it actually works. And so it ends up having an antibiotic effect. So like you'll treat the yeast and then the yeast becomes immune and stronger. And we saw that happen with our youngest. And that's how I fell down the whole rabbit hole of the grapefruit seed extract. But apparently that's a common thing. It's also just extremely strong and doesn't really get at the underlying issue, which is probably diet or tongue tie or microbiome.
Coming up, Erin covers specifics for how to establish a lifestyle baseline to avoid health issues from cropping up in the first place.
You're listening to the Wise Traditions podcast from the Weston A. Price Foundation. We pause now to recognize our sponsors.
Paleo Valley. There are a lot of ailments rooted in or exacerbated by inflammation. And because of that, there are a lot of ways that turmeric can be beneficial. Paleo Valley has a turmeric complex that aims to help you with joint health, avoiding joint discomfort, cellular health, blood flow, and neurodegenerative diseases that are just a few things made worse by inflammation. And if the health benefits were not persuasive enough, turmeric may also help with hangovers. Turmeric may slow down the transformation of alcohol into acetaldehyde in the body so that your body has time to process it, minimizing hangover symptoms. Paleo Valley has combined turmeric with coconut oil and black pepper, which has been shown to help turmeric absorption by 2,000%. They also have included organic ginger, rosemary, and cloves, which have additional benefits like brain support, healthy inflammation response, immune support, and healthy digestion and blood sugar levels. So head over to paleovalley.com/wise to receive 15% off your order of the turmeric complex or any other products of your choice. Again, that's paleovalley.com/wise to get 15% off. And American Blossom Linens. Sleep soundly and wake refreshed. Experience the soft, crisp, quality feel of the American Blossom Linens heirloom chemical-free bedding. It is made completely in the United States, just like the sheets your grandma had. American Blossom Linens is made by Thomaston Mills, a family-owned bedding manufacturer, making products since 1899. Their cotton is grown in the U.S., then spun, woven, finished, sewn, and packaged right here by your friends and neighbors. So check out their sheets, towels, blankets, pillows, duvets, duvet inserts, baby blankets, crib sheets, and more, all made in the United States from cotton and wool, natural fibers that greatly enhance your sleep experience. Foreign sheets made of synthetic fibers and filled with chemicals travel over 8,000 miles to get to you, which is no good for you or the environment. With over 2,500 five-star reviews, American Blossom Linens products are loved by many, including Angela and Shay from Homemaker Chic and Josh and Carolyn from Homesteading Family. And there's free shipping on everything. Order with confidence knowing that you will have their 2-year happiness guarantee. And if you are not happy with your purchase for any reason, simply return it for a full refund. So go now to AmericanBlossomLinens.com and use the code WISE for 20% off today. Again, that's AmericanBlossomLinens.com and the code WISE. This is Hilda Labrada Gore, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Talk to us more about sun and diet and what other things you would recommend as a baseline to maintain your family's health.
Yes. So the first thing is sleep. Sleep is so good. And I'm sure I'm not the only mom who's laughing right now or only person with the busy jobs and things, but it is so helpful. And if you can't improve your sleep quantity, maybe you can improve your sleep quality. So maybe some tart cherry juice, maybe turning your lights down and getting off your phone the last couple hours before bed, or a weighted blanket, or making sure your room is really dark. All these things can improve the quality, even if you can't sleep more. Another thing is just like you said, the sun. Like we were created naked in a garden. We weren't created to sit around and like work on our computers all day inside with artificial lights. So the more you can get outside, get your feet on the ground, if you can, to just be in contact with the earth, which is the electromagnetic field we were created to be in contact with, and get your body. And if it's cold or whatever, just a little bit of sun coming in on your face and hands, that's great. If it's warmer, more sun on more of you is better. And in addition to just improving your body's own immunity and your own, just like every bit of functioning of your body, it actually kills things. When we buy things from the thrift store that I can't wash, we just put it in the sun for a few hours. And the closer to the noon, like the solar noon you are, the stronger the healing rays are. So obviously don't get a sunburn, be careful, but the sun is like one of the best things you can do for yourself. And then, yeah, those bare feet on the ground are really good. And kind of the flip side of that is avoiding the man-made electromagnetic fields. So we've seen in our house, the smart meters have been a huge issue. We like fought this big battle and got the smart meter out and are so much healthier. And then they put a 5G tower in a half mile away, and I didn't know it, but all of a sudden we were sick a lot more and all these things. And there's nothing I can do about the 5G tower, but we did just buy some of grounding sheets. So there are these, have you heard of these, Hilda?
Yes.
Okay. So they like weave the sheets with silver, and then you plug them into the grounded outlet so that the sheets are connected to the electromagnetic field of the earth. And so then hopefully this electromagnetic field that we are designed to be connected with is overpowering the bad ones. So we haven't come in the mail yet, but I'm hoping they're helpful. A lot of people say they're really good, especially for immunity and for sleep quality. Also just moving your body. Our bodies were designed to move. We weren't designed to sit. So if you're well, please go exercise, work in your garden, park far from the store and walk in. And even if you're sick, obviously there's a really sick, you're like, no, I just can't move. But just stretch, just get up and walk to the mailbox, just move a little bit. And also massage or any kind of touch is good for getting that lymph fluid. Like we have lymph all over our bodies, and that's a trash system. And if you can keep that moving with a little massage or gentle movement, that will help you so much to get well and to stay well.
That sounds wonderful. And I think you're right. I'm so glad that you're addressing the young moms, especially when you're talking about sleep, because you know how hard that is to come by. And I can't help but think postpartum, there can be the risk of, if you have an episiotomy or tearing, and then maybe some postpartum infections. Do you have any remedies or suggestions for how to address that naturally?
But Miranda Castor has a little like postpartum homeopathy kit, which I was like, that's a great new mom gift. So it just has all the remedies. you might need and directions for how to use them. So even if you're not super homeopathy savvy, for all the different kind of postpartum troubles. But one of my favorite things, and I swear this has made me so functional after my last 2 births, was just the herbal sitz baths. And so if you don't already know about them, they just put different healing herbs that will both kill infection and promote blood flow and healing. And you just steep them like a tea and pour them into, whether you can buy these little sitz baths, like just for that little postpartum bottom, or large postpartum bottom, as the case may be right here. Or you can make it stronger and put it in the whole bathtub with some sea salt and maybe some magnesium. But I remember after my last baby, who was 8 pounds and a couple ounces, literally the next day, I was fine. I wasn't going to run a marathon, but I could sit on any surface I wanted to. And I think it was just the sitz bath with all these healing herbs. And also, once you have that postpartum infection, those are typically pretty dangerous, especially if it's like an infected tear or something. And I would say if you can't get that under control, like right now, then you just need to go take the antibiotics. But what if you never got to that point? What if you just took the sitz bath, maybe every day for a couple days, felt great, enjoyed the bath, and then didn't even know about the infections you avoided, right? So for this baby, instead of having my poor husband, who's already going to be running the house, try to give him directions on how to steep the tea, I got smart and I just made some and I froze it in a water bottle in my basement waiting for me.
Stick. So I'm thinking of the busy mom or the busy dad who is running things. What are some things, Erin, that you think we should just keep on hand to support our immune system and our health overall?
Yeah. So I have a couple of lists and maybe we can just post them at the bottom, like on the handout at the bottom here. But a couple things that I would love to just highlight are the snot suckers. We love the nose Frida snot sucker for little people. And then also magnesium salts. Magnesium salts are so helpful in the bath. They seem to heal like every conceivable problem. And then just vitamin C, right? It gets so much press and it totally deserves it. But we always keep extra vitamin C on hand because it really speeds healing.
Yeah. And what about other herbs or oils or foods you would recommend that we have on hand?
Yeah. So we'll have the recipes for these, but the thyme oxymel and the elderberry syrup are so helpful. Also, fire cider, which I have a recipe for, is a great one to make before you need it. It takes like 2 weeks to steep there. And a quick note about fire cider. I had never made it. I'm super sensitive to hot peppers. And I recently said this to a friend and she said, Erin, you could just make your own fire cider with no hot peppers. And it was so obvious, but you could make a fire cider that would work for you if you can't handle the horseradish or the garlic or the hot pepper or whatever it is. But that's a great one to have before you needed it. Extra broth. Broth is so healing, whether it's the upset stomach or the respiratory infection or whatever. There are so many healing components in broth. And also it's great. You can heat it up and steep some herbs or garlic in it. And then it's like doubly healing. But we always keep extra broth in the freezer for emergencies. I make a little homemade lotion and then I'll pre-dilute essential oils in a little lotion and then label them for my pre-readers. And then when the whole house is sick at the same time, which it's always that way, and the kids need your help and you can't get off the couch because you're so sick, you can just say, go find the lotion with the bee on it. And then the child can go and get the lotion and kind of self-treat. So I think it's a great one for moms is pre-diluted essential oils in whatever form.
Now, I think you already alluded to this, Erin, but can we take some of these things preventatively? In other words, I've made fire cider before, but then it just sits in my fridge and I never take it because I don't get sick. But could I take it just a tablespoonful every day if I felt like it?
Totally. Almost everything that we talked about would be appropriate to do also before you're sick, with a few pretty obvious exceptions. But like fire cider, it's apple cider vinegar, honey, garlic, ginger, herbs. These things are just good for you. So even if everybody in your house is sick, take it and that'll help you not to get sick. Or if you're sick, take it and it'll help you to get better quickly. But even if you're just taking it, it's going to be good for all of you. And the same goes for really almost all these things. Like these are the things we were created to consume.
Yeah, it's interesting you should say that because I'm thinking about cod liver oil. Dr. Price actually considered it a food, not a supplement. And he could see the benefits of it from people taking it every day. And I'm happy to report a lot of Weston A. Price Foundation members and friends who know about it have found, I don't want to just say solace, but actually health and boosted immune support, if you will, by taking that every day. You recommend it as well, right?
Totally. So I wish I could say we take it absolutely every day. We don't, but it's pretty close to it. In the winter, when we're not getting out and getting all that good sunshine, especially, we take it pretty close to every day. And I do think it helps our immunity. But beyond that, my kids have never, I remember having an argument with the dentist. They said it was okay that I didn't want x-rays for the kids just because they hadn't had any cavities. And first of all, I thought, if we've never had a cavity, we definitely don't need an x-ray. But second of all, I think it's the fermented cod liver oil because both of them for years had to be dairy-free because of autoimmune issues and things. And so what gave them such great teeth? Because we frankly don't brush as much as we should in our house. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying we don't. But it's good for all of you. And also seeing them, they're not rocket scientists or something, but they're bright, smart kids beyond what I've done as a mom, like teaching them. And I think so much of it is just the brain fats in other foods too. But I think there's something about the cod liver oil.
And you've talked about getting plenty of sunshine, the fresh air, the exercise, the feet on the ground. What are things we might avoid to up our family's health? You did say avoid the non-native electromagnetic frequencies. Anything else?
Yeah. So the non-native electromagnetic frequencies, especially, I was just thinking of this one. It's so tempting to be like, we're not a screen time family, but you're sick. Here's a screen. Holding that screen is really bad. So even if you're like, you're really sick and I got to cook dinner, put the screen away from the child. Even a few feet will make a big difference. But other than that, sugar will kill your immune system. And I've seen it in myself so many times and I'll forget, honestly. I'm like, oh, whatever. I'm too tired to do whatever. I'm just going to cheat a little bit and I will see. And then whatever little sickness I had suddenly explodes. Or my daughter, we've done a lot of gut healing and like a little sugar, maple syrup or something has been okay. And she had this nasty sore throat. I felt like just do the cough drops with a little bit of sugar in them. But it has all these other healing things. She was the child who wouldn't get better. Everybody else got better. And she wouldn't until I took her off the cough drops and she was better in 48 hours. And honey, especially with raw honey, is really different chemically from the table sugar, even organic brown table sugar or maple syrup, or even the pasteurized fruit juices. The chemical bond is different. So even if there is value in those things, it will have a depressing effect on your immune system. So when we're sick, we only do honey. And maybe even pay attention to yourself. Like we do great with honey, but you might not. So I think that's something to notice for the sugar topic, but for anything, pay attention to yourself. Just because I said this works doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Everybody is different. Every body is different. So if it works, do it. If it doesn't work, nix it. But yeah, sugar, cheap vegetable oils are terrible. They're terrible for you anyways. But I remember observing and then digging around online and finding out it's a common phenomenon for the cheap vegetable oils to specifically cause plugged ducts. So they're like blocking your arteries and veins, but they're doing the exact same thing in your milk. And once I got really serious about like absolutely avoiding the cheap vegetable oils, we had a lot fewer plugged ducts. But I also have seen it help sinus infections and everything else to avoid those cheap vegetable oils and then replace them with butter or ghee or bacon grease or olive oil, which are so much tastier anyways.
Absolutely. And I just love that so many of these recommendations are wise traditions, really, Erin. They are herbal remedies or simple baths, accessible treatments that actually help heal and don't just tamp down the symptoms. So I'm so thankful you've been on today. It's so fun to have you on for round 2. And I will put a link in the show description as well so people can find the earlier episode we did for you. And of course, we'll make sure people can find you too online. And I want to ask you now the question I like to pose at the end. If the listener could just do one thing to improve their health, what would you recommend that they do, Erin?
I would say just keep learning. Whether it's like listening to this podcast like you're doing right now, or there's a couple of books that Hilda said she'd put at the bottom, or whatever, reading, listening, learning, asking questions, and then just try it and see if it works for you.
Fantastic words to end on. Erin, thank you again on behalf of the Weston A. Price Foundation. We're grateful for your time.
Thank you so much, Hilda.
Our guest today was Erin O'Donnell. Visit her website, fullyalivefamilies.com, to learn more. And I am Hilda Labrada-Gore, the host and producer of this podcast for the Weston A. Price Foundation. You can find me at holistichilda.com. And for the transcript for this episode, visit our website, westonaprice.org, and click on the podcast page. And now for a recent review from Apple Podcasts. KCAT Scan had this to say: life-changing. This is the best health podcast out there. It covers all aspects of health and being bravely and thoughtfully. I've learned more here than anywhere. My must-listen show every week. KCAT Scan, this is awesome. It's really special to me. Thank you so much for your review. And you too can leave us a review. Just go to Apple Podcasts, click on ratings and reviews, give us a bunch of stars, and tell us why you love the show. It really means a lot. And thank you so much for listening, my friends. Stay well, and remember to keep your feet on the ground and your face to the sun.
On behalf of the Weston A. Price Foundation, thanks for listening. We have many free resources to support you on your health journey. Visit westonaprice.org to find podcasts, articles, videos, and more. You can also find a local chapter near you for help in finding sources of great food. We invite you to support the Foundation's mission of education, research, and activism by becoming a member. Thanks again, and take care. Wise Traditions is a project of the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. The content on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or other healthcare professional. It is not intended to be, nor does it constitute healthcare or medical advice.